On the Orlando front, it looks bad. They're 1-3. They're 25th in offense. The defense has been mediocre. They've really struggled to guard speed and movement. That's one of the things that stood out to me. And again, there's some tough matchups in there. Like Philly puts you in a really tough spot with guarding their guards because your bigs have to be up and they have to guard speed. And that's just a really difficult matchup for most of the bigs in the league. But I thought their bigs did a really poor job of showing up to the perimeter against Philly's off-screen players in last night's game. And in general, I thought they struggled defending in space. But I want to focus on offense because I'm not worried about Orlando's defense. Orlando was one of the very best defenses in the league over the last couple of years. I expect Orlando to be good on defense. The problem is they're 25th in offense, and that's been a big part of why they've struggled. And I did think last night was a significant step forward for the Magic on the offensive end of the floor. Like, in large part of what they've struggled with here in the early going is Paolo hasn't been good. And they finally got Paolo going last night. He had his best offensive game of the season, in my opinion. But a big part of that is I thought they were running some really rudimentary offense and making life harder for Paolo. So the easiest way I can describe this is like when I watch Franz and Paulo in their dynamic, like Franz is a much more deliberate offensive player. And what I mean by that is he's like really picky and choosy about how he attacks. So like he's going to try to get into his ball screens where he can make his reads, right? Like he ran a lot of stack last night. He's going to get into sequences where he can get the defender trapped on his backside, get downhill into the lane, and either get to his floater or have the passing reads that are available to him. He's kind of like your traditional methodical pick and roll player. And then he, like, even with this post up type of stuff, like he'll be picky about getting a guard on a switch before clearing aside and like getting to the left block so he can kind of work with his right hand towards the middle and once again get to his left shoulder hook or be able to spray out to the passing reads that become available in those situations. Like Franz to me is a guy that doesn't need as much like tactical support offensively. He's not as naturally gifted as Paolo for obvious reasons. Paolo's a bigger, better athlete, but like with Franz, he's just he's a more methodical offensive player and things come a little easier for him there. Paolo can be his own worst enemy sometimes. Like he'll just attack one-on-one without much intentionality, without much thought as to who he's attacking. And it's made harder by the fact that because he's so damn big, a lot of teams are happy to switch big actions with him. And then back in the past, when they would screen for him with guards, they would just be okay with those guys shooting out of hedges because they weren't great shooters. And so there wasn't much consequence there. And it was just difficult for Paolo, right? And despite that, because of how freaky talented he is, he obviously still had a lot of moments over the years. But I was particularly hoping that Desmond Bane could help with that issue by allowing Paolo to play with an advantage more, allowing him to get more easy opportunities to bolster what he does with his tougher shot making because of his supreme gifts, right? So one of the actions that I've been talking a lot about over the course of the summer, ever since Desmond Bane got traded to Orlando, is the idea of using Desmond Bane as a screener for Paolo. The reason why I've been keyed in on this is I've just seen so many examples of it elsewhere in the league that have worked extremely well. We see when you have a real shooter, like when you have a real shooter screening for a bigger athlete, you can have a lot of success. Over the years in Golden State before the Andrew Wiggins trade, it was one of their pet actions. They'd have Andrew Wiggins dribble with Steph screening for him, and then Wiggins would be able to get downhill. Giannis, a ton of this kind of thing. Giannis with like AJ Green or Gary Trent Jr. screening for him. He has the ability to get downhill. LeBron in Los Angeles has run a ton of inverted ball screens with Austin Reeves. What ends up happening with these types of situations when you have a really good offensive player that like a really good skill guard, a guard that has like a lot of gravity, so to speak, because he's a great shooter, it puts the defense in a really difficult position when they're guarding that action. You have a big-bodied athlete guarding your ball handler, your Paolo, your Giannis, your Andrew Wiggins, your LeBron, for the four examples that I gave, right? And then you've got a smaller, quicker guard guarding the guard, right? And in these sequences, they don't want to switch because then all of a sudden you've got a little guy that is guarding your big forward who can immediately take him down to the block, or you have a bigger, slower player that's got to guard your freaky skilled guard in this type of action, right? And so often what will end up happening is they won't switch, in which case your bigger ball handler can just cruise downhill. Giannis will get all sorts of dunks and easy opportunities out of the rim, out of this kind of stuff. Wiggins would get all sorts of layups and shit coming off of those inverted screens with Steph. Or they hedge, and if they hedge, then all of a sudden you got Steph Curry wide open. You got Austin Reeves wide open. You've got a really good offensive player slipping out of the action into space where he's going to hit shots. AJ Green was going to hit shots if you hedged on Giannis. And then if you switch, you generate these quality advantages on both sides of the action. It's just a very difficult action to guard relative to traditional pick and roll where your center's involved, where they can run no roller behind coverage simply because the big man is not as dynamic offensively as the screeners that you're using in these inverted actions. And so I really, really wanted to see a lot of Paolo dribbling on the perimeter with Bane coming up to screen for him and then him slipping out of the action so that Paolo could attack or have an easy read that becomes available to him based on how they're guarding it. And early in the season, they just weren't running it that much. It was driving me crazy to watch them because they would just kind of play your turn, my turn basketball. Well, I charted every single possession that they ran it against Philly. They ran it 7 times in this game. Most of the time off of the left wing, although they ran it in the middle of the floor once. But out of the 7 times they ran it, they got a great shot every single time, and they scored on 6 of them. And what's especially frustrating about this is that was a huge step forward, and I still felt like they left a ton of meat on the bone because they don't spam it the way that they should. They go away from it. They'll run it a couple times, and then they'll do something else. So, they run it twice in the middle of the first quarter in that action. So they don't run it to start the game, but then in the middle of the first quarter, they run it 2 times in a row off the left wing. The first time, they hedge. So when Bane slips out of it, Paolo throws an easy behind the back pass. Bane is wide open. The guy closes out on his right shoulder. He rips the closeout, gets all the way to the basket for an easy layup. Then they run it again on the very next possession. They switch it. Paolo posts up. When he posts up on Bane's defender, because he's a small, he immediately draws a double team, kicks out to Bane. They close out. He drives that closeout. Both defenders go with Bane. Paolo gets a wide open 3 off of the left wing, and he knocks it down. So they run it 2 times in a row, get a layup and a wide open 3, make them both, and then they went away from it. They didn't run it the next few minutes while they were on the floor together. They come back to it, 8 minutes and 40 seconds left in the second quarter. They get a switch. They don't double this time. Paolo gets an easy little short jumper over Quentin Grimes, and he knocks it down. Now, remember, with Paolo, it's getting inside of 17 feet. When he gets inside of 17 feet, he's a very efficient scorer. When he's outside of 17 feet off the dribble, when he's taking 18, 19 foot off the dribble jump shots, he's short almost all the time, and he becomes very inefficient on that shot. And so getting the switch for a favorable matchup with better spacing, because Bane just burned them on a hedge, and they burned him on a double team by getting a wide open shot for Paolo. So Paolo gets a good one-on-one, gets to his right shoulder fade right at 14, 15 feet and knocks it down. Didn't go back to it until 3 minutes left in the second quarter. So again, they're 3 for 3, 3 great shots. All of them went in. 3 minutes in the second quarter, Paolo rips baseline, gets the defense in rotation. Bane gets a wide open catch on the perimeter. He drives the closeout and hits a floater. So now they've run it 4 times and gotten 4 great shots and didn't go back to it the rest of the half. Right after running that action and getting Bane an easy closeout for a floater, they just go to Jalen Suggs for a few possessions in a row. They're still lacking some of the intentionality that they can get to there. They ran it with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. That was the next time they ran it. So they didn't run it for most of the first stretch of that, the first 7 minutes of the third quarter, they don't run it. They run it with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. Paolo gets Tyrese Maxey on a switch. So they run the action, they switch it. Paolo gets Tyrese Maxey, draw a double team. Bane ends up catching wide open, drives the closeout again, kicks back to Paolo. He is butt naked on the right wing for a 3, airballs it. But a great look. Again, so you've run it 5 times and you've gotten 5 great looks. He finally misses one. Whatever. They go back to it in the mid-fourth quarter. 4 minutes and 45 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Kelly Oubre jumps way on the high side. So Quentin Grimes is guarding Bane. Bane goes to set the screen. Quentin Grimes is hugged up on Bane, and Kelly Oubre jumps way on the high side off of the left wing, and Paolo just rips through and gets like the easiest little short driving floater that he's gotten all night because Kelly gave him a driving lane because Quentin Grimes wouldn't leave his man and because Kelly Oubre was trying to get ready for a screen from Desmond Bane. Like, super easy offense. They've run it now 6 times. They've gotten a great look every single time, and they've made 5 of them. They go back to it a minute later, about 3.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Paolo gets the switch. Desmond Bane sets a screen. They switch. VJ Edgecombe is now on Paolo. Paolo backs him down to the elbow. They double team off of Bane, and Bane throws an easy little Paolo throws an easy little kick out to Desmond Bane in the left corner. He's wide open, and he knocks down the 3. So they ran it 7 times in the game, and they got 6 makes, and I thought all 7 shots that they got were great. The toughest shot that they got, the only really tough shot in that 7 possessions, was a great matchup for Paolo, one-on-one, left elbow against a small guard, and he got to a short jump shot over his right shoulder, and he knocked it down. Like, they just are, there is an easier way to do things than they've been doing it. Like, what's crazy is they ran that with 3.5 minutes left for the 7th time, got great stuff on it every single time, right? Then all of a sudden, there's like a random Jalen Suggs, Wendell Carter Jr. pick and roll, and Jalen Suggs throws the lob out of bounds. And so this is the crazy thing. Like, Franz is obviously methodical, doesn't need as much support. It looks smooth when he's out there, right? Then you get these easier opportunities for Paolo. He ends up having his best game of the season, and it still feels like they didn't intentionally go to it as much as they should. Like, when I was watching that game, it felt to me like an action they should have run 15 times. It felt to me like something they should have worn out because they weren't getting, again, out of those actions, only one time did they have to take a tough isolation jump shot because they were getting wide open threes, layups, and easy closeout attacks for short jump shots that were like wide open, or short floaters that were wide open that were great looks. Again, it's about making life easier for Paolo, offering him tactical support. That's the wonderful thing about having Desmond Bane that you didn't have in the past. A guy that has to be guarded by a very different type of defender, but that can consistently make teams pay when he gets left open. And so it just, again, it was a good step forward last night, but I still feel like there's a lot of room for improvement there. And I really, really want to see them continue to wear out that action. Hugely encouraging that we see, 6 of them off the left wing, off the same spot with a cleared left corner, which is like a clear sign that they're making some efforts to start running this action. I just want to see it more. I want to see it more. These inverted ball screens with the big ball handlers are a big market inefficiency in the NBA right now. I want to see more and more of that from Paolo and Bane.